Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 700 Club. I'm Andrew Knox. For today's top headlines, let's go over to the CBN News Desk.
Thanks, Andrew. Reactions to the Supreme Court's ruling granting limited immunity to occupants of the Oval Office came swift and strong. President Biden condemned it as a dangerous precedent. Former President Donald Trump called it a big win for the Constitution. In addition to its historical impact, the ruling also affects an election interference case against former President Donald Trump. CBN's Gary Lane reports.
For the first time in its 235-year history, the U.S. Supreme Court has clarified the issue of presidential immunity, ruling 6-3 that presidents have absolute immunity for official acts and presumptive immunity for actions taken outside the parameter of the duties of the office. Former President Donald Trump brought the case before the court, claiming he had absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for his official acts as president on January 6, 2021.
But you're not going to do anything if you don't have immunity, because otherwise you're going to be prosecuted after you leave office.
And a majority of the justices agreed. Chief Justice John Roberts delivered the court's opinion that, quote, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. And he's entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts.
The court, in a rather complicated way, carved out various levels of immunity that a president might enjoy.
Immediately after the ruling was announced, Trump posted on Truth Social, "Big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American." In an address to the nation, President Biden said the ruling means there are no limits on what a president can do.
This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone.
The ruling kicks the January 6th case down to the federal district court, and it puts the burden on Special Prosecutor Jack Smith to prove the former president acted unofficially and with criminal motivation as a candidate for president. That will be hard to prove because the Supreme Court says his contacts with the Justice Department and Vice President Pence to overturn the election took place as official acts within the president's authority. When Trump's lawyers presented arguments before the court last April, Justice Sotomayor asked if there should be any limits on presidential actions.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
Justice Kagan and Jackson agreed with Sotomayor, voting against the majority's decision. In the dissent, Sotomayor wrote, "Today's decision to grant former presidents criminal immunity reshapes the institution of the presidency. It makes a mockery of the principal foundation to our Constitution and system of government that no man is above the law. The court gives former President Trump all the immunity he asked for and more." Legal experts agree this unprecedented historic ruling will have far-reaching implications, not only for Donald Trump, but future presidents as well. As a result, the Supreme Court's decision will likely delay Jack Smith's prosecution of the former president until after the November election. And President Trump is now citing the ruling in a move seeking to overturn his conviction in New York last month of falsifying business records, despite those acts being committed before he was president. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Joining us now is CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. So, David, Donald Trump is celebrating this as a victory. How will he use this to his advantage on the campaign trail?
Well, first of all, in the short term, as Gary pointed out, that January 6th case is going nowhere before the election. So that is victory right there, Ephraim. But beyond all of that, there's going to be a sense by Donald Trump here to say, once again, look, weaponization of government against me. You know, poor Donald Trump, they're coming after me. And even the Supreme Court agrees with me. And once again, he's going to be able to say, you see, even the Supreme Court had to stop this nonsense that's coming up against me. So, you know, once again, politically, it's a win for Donald Trump. He's been on a big win streak lately, for sure, Ephraim.
On the flip side, President Biden is calling this a dark day and said it's the latest in a line of Supreme Court decisions attacking established law like voting rights and women's rights. How is he going to use this ruling for his purposes?
Well, he's going to do the flip side of the democracy argument. He'll say this is a threat to democracy. You know, Donald Trump said it's a big win for the Constitution and democracy. President Biden will say Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. This decision is a threat to democracy. And from a political standpoint, this actually may help Biden a little bit to basically make the argument, which he has done now this week after the Supreme Court ruling, to say, look, if the Supreme Court can't get it right, the only people in America that can get it right now, are the voters. And so, therefore, that's going to give Biden more motivation to go and tell the voters, hey, look, it's you or nobody at this point to stop Donald Trump from what he believes will be reckless behavior under this decision.
The president's lackluster debate last week stunned Democrats to the point of talks about removing him. Where does this stand now? Is that really a possibility, or is the party coming around him?
Well, this could be a lengthy answer, Ephraim. I know we don't have a lot of time, though I am paid by the minute, so that's a good thing, I guess, from a personal standpoint. Look, this is shifting. You know, we already have some new reporting out by the famed, legendary reporter Carl Bernstein talking about how Biden, folks close to Biden, have said that they've seen this happen, what we saw at the debate, about 15, 20 times or so in the last year. So, dare I say the word cover-up, but there has been, according to Democrat sources, a cover-up of sorts, if you will, to shield President Biden from what was displayed on Thursday night. It's now all out in the open. And so where does this go? We don't really know at this point. At this point, it's all going to be about Joe and Jill Biden and what they decide. But the problem for the Democrats here is that this, unlike other crises that come up in the past that go away, you know, give it a week, give it 2 weeks, give it a month, and then the media moves on to something else. That's not this, Ephraim. This is going to get worse. Why is it going to get worse? Because of Joe Biden's age. Every day he gets a day older. And so the mishaps are going to continue. The narrative will continue. And I'm not quite sure how Biden gets out of it at this point.
All right, David Brody, thank you so much for joining us. I want to turn now to the war in Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the IDF is close to ending a major phase of the war in Gaza. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, that could mean a step towards a wider war on the northern border.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told a group of Army cadets the IDF is close to destroying Hamas's capabilities. The IDF also announced an evacuation of Khan Yunis to get civilians out of harm's way as it prepares an offensive to clear out Hamas terrorists who fled there from Rafah. Meanwhile, the Biden administration says Israel must eventually let all Gazans return and settle in the territory. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken laid out the administration's terms for Gaza after the war.
And we know that there are three things that are unacceptable for Gaza's future: an Israeli occupation, Hamas perpetuating its leadership, or chaos, anarchy, lawlessness, which is what we're seeing in big parts of Gaza today.
Blinken also believes there's still a possibility of a ceasefire in exchange for hostages, but points the finger at Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar as the obstacle.
Mr. Sinwar is not only holding on to Israeli, American, and other hostages, he's continuing to make a hostage of Palestinian children, women, and men.
On the northern border, the fighting continues between Hezbollah and Israel. In June, Hezbollah has fired nearly 300 suicide drones, missiles, and rockets into northern Israel. Blinken addressed the possibility of an all-out war between the two.
60,000 or so Israelis who've been forced from their homes in northern Israel. Israel has effectively lost sovereignty in the northern quadrant of its country because people don't feel safe to go to their homes.
On Monday, the Anti-Defamation League filed a lawsuit for victims of the October 7th massacre. Anti-Defamation League CEO Jonathan Greenblatt announced that the legal action targets Iran, Syria, and North Korea.
This lawsuit, on behalf of more than 100 Americans who are affected by this attack, will indeed ensure that there are consequences to be brought for the bloodiest day experienced by the Jewish people since the Holocaust.
The lawsuit is demanding $4 billion in compensation and accuses these countries of providing money, weapons, and other assistance that made the October 7th massacre possible. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.